Have you ever wondered what happens before you were born, not in the womb, but before your very first breath, before even a single cell began to divide? Not many people ask this question. Fewer still dare to imagine the answer. But ancient traditions, mystics, and even some modern scientists suggest that before the physical body begins to take shape, before anything is visible or measurable, there is already something happening, something profound, silent, and sacred. A meeting takes place, not between people, but between worlds, a crossing of thresholds. A soul, existing outside of time and matter, begins its journey into form, and it all begins with one mysterious transition, the sacred moment of arrival. There is said to be a veil thin, almost imperceptible between the eternal and the temporal. On one side, the soul floats in a realm beyond language, shape, or memory, a place of pure potential, vast awareness, and deep knowing. On the other side is the physical realm bound by gravity, time, and the slow rhythm of biology. Between these two is a gate, and every human being, including you, has passed through it. But when exactly does that passage occur? When does a soul that has known stars, silence, and spirit choose to descend into blood, breath, and bone? This question is older than any religion, and deeper than science has yet dared to go. What we're speaking about isn't a theory, it's a mystery that threads through every culture, every lineage, every sacred text. From the whispers of ancient shamanic rituals to the poetic descriptions of Sufi mystics, there is agreement on one thing. The soul does not arrive by accident. It's not swept into a body like dust on the wind. It enters with intention, with awareness, and often with preparation. Imagine a symphony where the final note cannot be played until every instrument is perfectly in tune. That is the entry of the soul. A convergence of conditions, alignments, energies, and permissions. And though we may not remember it, we all experienced it. The moment we crossed from the eternal into the ephemeral. Some say this moment feels like falling gently through light. Others say it's more like diving into water suddenly immersed, weightless, but tethered to something new. There are traditions that describe it as a contract being sealed. Others say it's a choicer, sacred yes whispered from the soul to the universe. And yet, for all the ancient wisdom, one thing remains elusive: the exact when. Is it the moment sperm meets egg, the first heartbeat, the first breath? Or could it be something even more layered, more beautiful, a gradual descent across realms we barely understand? But here's the truly fascinating part. Long before the body begins to form, something begins to stir, a signal goes out. Not from the physical world, but from the future mother, the future father, from their lineage, their emotional readiness, their spiritual openness. It's not spoken in words, but in vibration. A kind of call that echoes across dimensions. And somewhere, a soul hears it. Not just any soul, but the one meant for that particular configuration of time, place, and experience. A match is mad or not, just by biology, but by energy, karma, purpose. This moment is not chaotic, it is precise. It's as if the entire cosmos pauses, just for a breath, to allow this crossing to take place. The soul steps forward, not as a blank slate, but as a conscious being with intention, history, wisdom, and desire. It knows what it's walking into: joy, pain, love, loss, triumph, confusion, and it says yes. It steps through the veil, and from that instant on, life, in all its mystery, has begun. This is not about religious belief, it's about the unseen mechanics of life. The soul doesn't float into a body randomly. There is architecture to this entry, a sequence, a purpose, and above all, an intelligence far beyond what we've been taught. While some try to reduce life to chemical reactions and chance, there is another story unfolding behind the scenes. A quieter one, a sacred one, where nothing is random and every life begins with a choice, a crossing, and a sacred invitation. According to many ancient teachings, the soul does not simply fall into form, it is called, pulled gently toward a particular lifetime, guided by a complex set of alignments, both visible and invisible. This is the cosmic invitation, and it begins long before the physical body takes shape. Some say the soul waits patiently in a realm of light, surrounded by guides, ancestors, and other souls. There, it watches, it listens, it studies the unfolding of a potential life, not as an observer, but as a participant in waiting. It examines the lessons available, the emotional terrain, the challenges and gifts that await, and then, when the moment is right, the soul begins to respond. The call isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a subtle ripple in the field of time, a frequency that matches something dormant inside the soul itself, like the resonance of a tuning fork vibrating across dimensions, drawing that soul in closer and closer, and as it moves toward the physical world, it begins to prepare not just spiritually, but energetically. The soul must condense its vastness into something that can fit inside a growing human frame. This is no small task. It requires layers, shields, agreements, timing. In some spiritual traditions, it is believed that the soul meets with wise beings, sometimes called councils, who assist in determining the exact parameters of the coming life, the family, the environment, the key moments that will define the journey. Not everything is fixed, but certain milestones are chosen, certain themes agreed upon. It's like choosing a curriculum before entering a school. The soul knows it won't remember everything once it arrives, but it carries the echo of that agreement deep within its being. From there, a tether is formed, an energetic bridge that links the soul to the body that is beginning to form, and this is where things get truly mysterious. Some souls wait nearby from the moment of conception, observing, hovering, gently influencing the environment. Others come and go until the moment is right. Still others wait until the body is more developed, until the emotional and energetic infrastructure is ready to receive them. But always, the soul is involved, watching, choosing, aligning. Mothers often report inexplicable feelings during early pregnancy, emotional shifts, heightened intuition, the sense that someone is present even before science confirms it. It is as if the soul has begun to respond to the call. And not just respond, but engage. Some believe that dreams during this time are messages from the soul, symbols encoded with its essence. Others feel a sudden bond, a knowing that defies explanation. This cosmic invitation is not one-sided. It is a meeting of intentions, the souls and the parents. The future mother and father, whether consciously or unconsciously, are sending signals into the fabric of time and space. Their energy, their dreams, even their unresolved womb soul become part of the invitation. The soul that resonates with that specific configuration will feel the pull. And if everything aligns, it will begin the sacred approach. There is beauty in knowing that life doesn't just happen to us, that we don't randomly appear in a body at some unknown moment without purpose. The soul is not a passenger. It is the co-creator of the journey. And the moment it hears the invitation, feels the resonance, and chooses to respond, that is the moment when everything changes. That is the beginning of the sacred arrival. There is a moment so small, so fleeting, that science barely acknowledges it, yet across time and culture, it has been recognized as one of the most powerful turning points in existence. The moment of conception. Two microscopic cells, each carrying an ancient lineage, collide in a cosmic dance that is anything but ordinary. This is not just biology. It is a moment that bends time. A flash of light, literally. Recent research shows that when sperm meets egg, a burst of zinc particles is released, creating what scientists now call the zinc spark. But mystics have spoken of this long before microscopes existed. In their language, it's not a chemical reaction, it's a spiritual ignition. A soul hears that spark, not with ears, but with knowing. And for some, that is the precise instant it steps in. At conception, the door between the worlds swings open. For those who believe the soul enters at this very moment, it is a divine convergence, not just of DNA, but of destiny. It is the instant where the physical blueprint meets the non-physical intelligence that will inhabit it. The soul doesn't wait for form to develop. It begins weaving itself into the story from the very first division of cells. Every chromosome, every strand of genetic information becomes part of the canvas upon which the soul will paint its life. And it chooses this canvas with purpose. Out of all the potential combinations, this one holds the perfect conditions for its growth, its challenges, its expression. Many mothers, completely unaware of the biology unfolding inside them, report strange experiences at this early stage. Sudden shifts in mood, flashes of insight, or dreams so vivid they feel more like memories. Some dream of children appearing in luminous forms, whispering, "I'm coming." Others describe an inner stillness that descends like a sacred hush, as if something has entered the temple of the body and everything knows it must be still. There are even stories of mothers waking up with tears on their cheeks, not from sadness, but from a deep, inexplicable recognition that something sacred has begun. These are not anomalies, these are echoes, signals that the soul is near or already within. For those who hold this view, the soul's presence is immediate and complete. It does not hover, it does not wait. It arrives with the first breath of creation and begins to infuse the growing embryo with its unique frequency. Every cell that multiplies does so under its influence. And although the physical body is still in its earliest stages, the energetic imprint of the soul is already strong. This is why, they say, even at the earliest stages of pregnancy, some women feel like someone new is with them, not a cluster of cells, but a consciousness, a being, a presence. And that presence begins shaping its environment right away. The conception theory is powerful because it treats life as sacred from the very first spark. It recognizes that something irreversible happens the moment those two cells merge. A unique energy signature is born, never to be repeated again. A singular expression of consciousness has begun its journey, and whether or not it stays for 9 months or for only a few days, its presence is real, meaningful, and transformative. The soul that chooses to enter at conception is often described in esoteric teachings as bold, decisive, and ready. It wastes no time, it dives in. And once it does, everything begins to change, not only in the physical world, but in the spiritual architecture surrounding the parents, the family, and even the ancestral lineage. A new timeline begins to unfold, and its ripple is felt far beyond what the eyes can see. But not all traditions agree. For others, the soul waits, it watches, it hovers at the threshold, curious but cautious, like a traveler surveying the terrain before stepping onto foreign soil. And that's where the mystery of implantation begins. Roughly 6 to 12 days after conception, something remarkable happens. The fertilized embryo, now called a blastocyst, finds its way to the uterine wall. It's as if the tiny being, having drifted through the vast ocean of the womb, has finally found its harbor. It doesn't just attach, it embeds. It roots itself into the nourishing soil of the mother's body, forming a direct, intimate bond. This is not merely a biological milestone, it is an energetic one. It is the moment when two bodies, mother and future child, enter into a sacred contract of mutual transformation. And for many spiritual traditions, this is the true moment of arrival. The soul, in this view, has been present but not yet anchored. It has observed the early formation, perhaps even influenced it. But it waits until the body has a fixed point, a home, a center of gravity. Implantation gives the soul that anchoring. The womb is no longer just a space, it is now a temple, actively receiving. And the soul accepts the invitation. Slowly, gently, it begins to merge with the developing life. Not all at once, but in waves. Like breath moving in and out, it comes closer with each passing hour, syncing its rhythm to that of the new body it will soon inhabit. What makes this moment particularly profound is that it coincides with the first production of HCG, the hormone that announces pregnancy to the mother's system. Suddenly, the body knows something new is here. It begins to change in response. Hormones shift, blood flow increases, new pathways open. From an energetic perspective, this is not just the body's reaction, it is its way of answering the soul's knock at the door. Yes, the body says, "You are welcome. I recognize you. Come in." Mystics and medicine women from indigenous traditions speak of implantation as the moment of the soul's rooting. They describe it as a handshake across worlds, a negotiation. The soul does not just claim the body, it enters into communion with it. There are stories from South American shamans who say that the soul and the body spend days in silent conversation during this time, aligning their intentions, reviewing their shared mission, preparing for the long road ahead. Some souls choose to stay. Others realize the timing is not quite right and withdraw, leaving no trace except a whisper in the mother's dreams. It is no coincidence that many women begin to feel something shift at this stage, even if they're not consciously aware of being pregnant. They speak of feeling watched, guided, or emotionally stirred without explanation. It's as if their intuition is dialed to a new frequency, one that picks up signals from a source just beyond the veil. Implantation is not loud, it doesn't arrive with fireworks. But for those who are attuned, it is unmistakable. It is the soul gently stepping through the threshold, not to observe from a distance but to begin the process of becoming. This view offers something incredibly meaningful. It bridges the biological and the spiritual with elegance. It gives the soul its rightful place in the story without dismissing the profound intelligence of the body. It shows us that the entry of the soul is not forced or automatic, it's relational, it's chosen. And that choice is mirrored in the body's readiness to receive, in the hormones it begins to produce, in the subtle changes that ripple through every cell. Implantation, in its quiet magic, reminds us that beginnings are not always loud. Sometimes, the most sacred events unfold in silence. They happen in the dark, in the depth, in the womb of mystery. And yet, they shape everything that comes after. Because once the soul takes root, once it says yes not just to life, but to this life, everything begins to move in harmony with that choice. The universe listens, the future begins to write itself, and the journey from spirit to flesh takes one irreversible step forward. There's a sound that marks a turning point in the mystery of life. It's not loud, it doesn't come with language, but once it begins, everything changes. It's the sound of a tiny, rhythmical beat no bigger than a grain of rice echoing inside the sacred chamber of the womb, the first heartbeat. For many, this is the moment that consciousness, in all its complexity, steps through the final gateway and settles into the body. Not as an idea, not as a possibility, but as presence. The heart begins to beat, not because the body is ready, but because the soul has arrived. And with it, life is no longer just forming. Life is now declaring itself. Across cultures, the heart has always been more than an organ. It has been seen as the seat of truth, of memory, of soul. The Egyptians weighed the heart against a feather to measure a person's worth in the afterlife. The Greeks spoke of it as the center of thought and emotion. In Chinese medicine, it is the emperor of all organs, the ruler of consciousness itself. When that first beat echoes through the fluid darkness of the womb, it is more than biology, it is poetry. A signal, a pulse that connects the forming body with its eternal origin. Some say it's the soul's voice saying, "I am here." What makes this moment so powerful is that it marks a true beginning of independence. The heart creates its own rhythm. It does not beat because the mother tells it to. It beats because it is animated by something unseen. From that point forward, the body is no longer just a collection of multiplying cells, it is a vessel, a home, and the soul, now fully present, begins to radiate through the growing form, shaping not only its physiology, but its very vibration. Mothers often report a shift around this time. They may feel more connected, more grounded, or even more emotional without knowing why. Some experience dreams of water, of rhythm, of being pulled into deeper layers of awareness. Others speak of inexplicable moments of clarity, as if someone is whispering truths they hadn't yet considered. What's extraordinary is that this moment tends to arrive around the 3rd week of gestationa, time when, in many cases, the pregnancy is still unknown to the conscious mind. And yet, something ancient is awakening. The beat of that tiny heart echoes the cosmic rhythm found everywhere. In ocean tides, in the orbit of moons, in the pulse of stars. It connects the forming human with all of creation. Some traditions teach that the soul uses the heart as its primary bridge to the body, that through the beat, it sends its intention, its identity, its memory. The soul is not just sitting inside the body, it is communicating through it, from the very first thump. And it doesn't stop there. As the heart continues to beat, it becomes a metronome of embodiment, each beat a drum of descent, a reminder that this life is underway, that the soul has not only arrived, but committed. In some esoteric lineages, it is believed that before this moment, the soul still has an open door, a chance to turn back, to reconsider. But once the heart beats, the doorway closes. The contract is sealed. The incarnation is active. What was once a potential life has become a living thread in the tapestry of existence. Not every soul enters this way. Some arrive sooner, some later. But for those who choose this moment, the heartbeat is the declaration. It is the ceremony, the sacred moment of no return. And all of this happens in silence, in the hidden world beneath skin and time. While the outer world moves on unaware, the inner world experiences an event as monumental as a star being born. That tiny beat, almost imperceptible, reverberates through the universe, announcing that a soul has taken form. And from that point forward, the story unfolds not only in flesh, but in spirit. But this sacred journey doesn't unfold in a single instant. It evolves over time. And nowhere is that more evident than in the mysterious window of the first 40 days of pregnancy, a period spoken of in myths, in scriptures, in spiritual science, as a time unlike any other. 40 days. A number that repeats with eerie consistency across the most ancient teachings of the world. Jesus fasted for 40 days. Moses wandered the mountain for 40 days. The Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree in meditation for nearly the same span. And in pregnancy, something equally monumental is taking place. In those first 40 days, the blueprint of life is being drawn. The energetic, emotional, spiritual, and physical architecture is forming all at once. From the first cell division to the formation of the nervous system, from the initial stirrings of organs to the beginning of the heart's beat, these 40 days encompass more than development, they hold transformation. Some teachings suggest that this window is when the soul and body finalize their union. Before this, the soul may come and go, observing, preparing, even influencing but not fully anchoring. The first 40 days are the final weaving, the knitting together of body and being. Mothers who are sensitive often describe this time as a period of surreal awareness. Dreams become more vivid, emotions more complex. Time itself seems to bend and stretch. Some awaken in the night at the same hour again and again, feeling a presence nearby. Others report overwhelming moments of clarity, as if information is being downloaded directly into their consciousness. One woman described it as feeling like she was being watched by someone who loved her deeply. Not from the outside, but from within. These are not coincidences. They are the subtle signs of soul weaving itself into form. The body, during these 40 days, is undergoing changes so rapid, so intricate, that even modern science struggles to track them. But beneath the biology, a deeper rhythm is playing out. According to many esoteric traditions, this is the time when the soul communicates with the spiritual realm one final time, making peace with the past, reviewing the mission of this life, receiving blessings or guidance for the path ahead. It is not just the baby that is being formed, it is the entire journey, being rehearsed in sacred silence. And why 40? In numerology, 40 represents a complete cycle, a preparation, a sacred gestation of spirit before action. In this context, the number symbolizes a bridger transitional space where something ancient meets something new, a soul leaving the eternal and slowly, deliberately, choosing the temporal, choosing form, choosing limitation, choosing the mystery of becoming human. This is why so many spiritual systems treat the first 40 days with reverence, not just as a physical milestone, but as a spiritual opportunity, a window where the veil is thin, where communication between dimensions is possible, where the soul whispers its presence before the world ever hears a heartbeat or sees an ultrasound. In some traditions, these 40 days are considered so sacred that women are encouraged to live with heightened awareness, to avoid disturbances, to meditate, to honor the silence within. Because within that silence, the most extraordinary union is taking place. It is also during this time that the mother's body subtly begins to align with the soul's vibration. The relationship is not one way. Just as the soul is learning to live in flesh, the mother is learning to live with spirit inside her. An invisible conversation begins. And for those who listen closely, the soul speaks not in language, but in symbols, in energy, in intuition. It shares its essence, its needs, its nature. Some women report knowing their child's personality before the baby even has a name, not as a guess, but as a deep inner certainty. The kind of knowing that doesn't come from thought, but from being. And so, the first 40 days are not just a countdown on a calendar. They are a rite of passage, a portal, a liminal space where life crosses from potential into presence. A time when soul and body make a sacred pact, when destiny is not only accepted but welcomed. In that quiet space before the world begins to watch, the most powerful moments unfold unseen. It is the final stretch of the journey before the soul fully descends, not just to touch the earth, but to live upon it. And when those 40 days come to an end, something irreversible has happened. A new story has begun, a soul has found its vessel, and the miracle of life is now fully underway. There are moments in life when something shifts, but you can't quite explain why. A sense that the air feels different, that time slows down for a second, that something unseen has entered the room. Many mothers describe exactly this sensation in the early days of pregnancy, long before they ever take a test or feel a symptom. And for those who are listening closely, the signs are unmistakable. They are not dramatic, but they are real, like whispers from another world. These subtle signals are among the earliest clues that a soul has arrived, or is arriving. And though our culture often dismisses them as hormones, dreams, or wishful thinking, across centuries and continents, they have been revered as sacred message signposts of a new consciousness entering the human world. One of the most common signs is a vivid, almost otherworldly dream. These aren't the usual fragments of memory or anxiety. These are dreams that feel like experience coherent, powerful, and full of meaning. Many women report dreaming of a child appearing beside them, calling them by name, or simply standing in silence, radiating light. In some of these dreams, the soul speaks. It may say, "I'm ready," or "I've chosen you," or sometimes nothing at all. Just a gaze, a presence that lingers long after waking. One woman recalled a dream where she was standing in a golden field and a child ran toward her, holding out their hand. When she took it, a wave of peace swept over her. She wasn't pregnant yet, but 2 days later, she would be. Other mothers describe a sudden shift in energetic sensitivity. Women who never considered themselves intuitive suddenly begin sensing presences, emotions, and changes in the atmosphere around them. Rooms feel different. People feel different. Their bodies feel different not just physically but vibrationally. Some describe it as tuning into a frequency they didn't know existed. It's not that the soul speaks in words, it's that it resonates. And when it does, the mother becomes a receiver. Whether she understands it consciously or not, the bond has begun. Then there are the synchronicities, those strange alignments of events that feel too perfect to be coincidence. A song playing on the radio with lyrics that speak directly to a question you hadn't said out loud. A stranger mentioning a name that you had just dreamed about. A book falling open to a passage about birth, or souls, or beginnings. Numbers repeating. Animals acting strangely. These moments aren't just random. They are the language of the unseen. The soul is speaking not with sound, but through symbols, and those symbols are everywhere for those who choose to see them. Some women also report strange changes in their perception of time. A specific moment during the day that feels different from the rest, slower, heavier, more spacious. Almost as if a line has been drawn between life before and life after. One woman described sitting at her kitchen table and suddenly feeling like everything went still. The clock ticked, but it didn't move. For a few seconds, she was overcome with a sense that someone had arrived, silently, and was now part of her. She had no physical signs of pregnancy yet, but she knew something had shifted, and she was right. Another sign comes through animals. Pets, in particular, seem to sense when a new energy has entered their space. Cats suddenly curling up on the abdomen, even before there's a bump. Dogs becoming protective, attentive, watchful. Birds lingering at windows. In traditions around the world, animals are known to sense spiritual presence long before humans do. Their instincts are not clouded by doubt or logic. They feel what is real. And when a soul steps closer to its earthly vessel, animals often become the first silent witnesses. But perhaps the most powerful signs are internal. A quiet knowing, a change in intuition, a mother who suddenly feels drawn to certain colors, sounds, or places, a sense that she is no longer alone, even when no one else is in the room, a subtle but undeniable fullness not of body, but of spirit. These signs rarely announce themselves loudly. They don't demand attention. They simply arrive, like a breeze through an open window, bringing with them the scent of something eternal. Yet even with all these signals, there's a question many still wonder. Does the soul enter all at once, or does it arrive in layers? This is where we begin to step into a deeper and even more mysterious understanding of incarnation, because not every tradition believes in a single moment of entry. Some teachings, especially those from the esoteric and mystical schools, describe the soul's arrival not as a flash of presence but as a journey, a slow, deliberate descent from spirit into matter, a layered process that unfolds in phases, each one activating a deeper level of embodiment. The soul in these teachings is not a singular thing. It is a tapestry woven of will, emotion, memory, wisdom, and light. And each thread anchors at a different moment. The first spark may enter at conception, announcing the soul's interest. But the emotional body, the part that will hold feelings, may not connect until weeks later. The mental body, with its ideas and perceptions, may arrive still later. And the higher aspects, the soul's purpose, its ancient memory, its karmic lessons may only fully settle in the later stages of pregnancy or even at birth. In this view, the body develops like an instrument. First, it is tuned. Then, it is tested. And only when it is ready does the full song begin. The soul, like a skilled musician, waits patiently for the moment when all parts are in harmony. Some even say the soul dips in and out during this period, like a diver adjusting to the depth, coming closer, pulling back, listening, preparing. And only when everything is aligned, energetically, emotionally, cosmically does it anchor fully and begin its work. This layered approach explains why different people, different cultures, and different mothers experience the moment of soul arrival so differently. Some feel it immediately, others feel it weeks later. And both are true, because the soul does not follow our timelines. It follows its own rhythm that is deeply connected to the laws of spirit, not the laws of man. And in that rhythm, arrival is not a point, it is a process. Many mystical traditions describe this process as a dance, a back and forth movement between realms, a negotiation of sorts, where the soul chooses how deeply to engage, when to reveal its nature, and how much of itself to bring forth at each stage. This idea also explains why some pregnancies end early not as biological accidents, but as soul-level decisions. The body may have been forming, but the soul was still deciding, still observing, still waiting for the conditions to be right. And when they aren't, it gently steps back, returning to the spiritual plane, perhaps to try again another time, with different timing, different parents, different lessons. This understanding is not just poetic, it is deeply healing. It invites us to see incarnation not as a mechanical event, but as a sacred unfolding. It reminds us that each soul is wise, aware, and deeply involved in its own journey to Earth, that nothing is random, that even before birth, there is intelligence, there is purpose, and there is choice. The soul, in its descent, is not a passive traveler. It is a conscious creator, shaping its experience from the very first whisper of life. And for those who sense this, for those who feel the layers unfold dream by dream, moment by moment, heartbeat by heartbeat, the journey becomes more than just a biological miracle. It becomes a spiritual revelation, a reminder that the arrival of a soul is not a singular flash, but a symphony, one that begins quietly, builds gradually, and then, when the moment is right, bursts forth into life. There's a truth that runs like a secret current beneath everything we think we know about life. The soul does not arrive by chance. It chooses. Not just the body it will inhabit, but the time, the place, the family, and even the circumstances of its birth. This is one of the most ancient and powerful teachings found across spiritual traditions, and it turns our entire understanding of incarnation upside down. We often think of conception as something that simply happens biological, automatic. But what if behind that moment is a consciousness making a choice? What if, before anything begins in the physical world, a soul is already watching, already planning, already saying yes? There are countless accounts from mystics, shamans, and regression therapists who've worked with people under deep hypnosis, and again, one theme appears. Souls remember choosing their lives. They remember hovering above the earth, looking down at potential families, feeling into the emotional environments of different parents, weighing the karmic opportunities of one lineage over another. It's not about picking the easiest path. In fact, more often, the soul chooses the exact conditions that will challenge it most deeply, not to punish itself, but to grow, to learn, to evolve. Before conception ever occurs, there is already a field of preparation. The soul engages in what some call a soul council or pre-birth planning session, where it reviews possible lifelines, significant events, major lessons, and even the relationships it will form. It might meet with other souls' future parents, siblings, even future children, and agree to play roles in each other's growth. These meetings aren't contracts written in stone, but energetic agreements rooted in love and mutual understanding. Together, they co-design a path, rich with meaning and full of potential. But even once the soul has selected a family, the timing of its arrival is just as deliberate. In certain mystical and astrological traditions, it's said that the soul waits for very specific planetary alignments. It knows its mission, and it knows the energies it needs in order to fulfill that mission. It may wait weeks, months, even years for the perfect celestial configuration that will imprint its personality, its challenges, and its gifts. It's as if the soul is waiting to board a train, but only the right train, headed in the right direction, with all the necessary pieces in place. And yet, even with all that planning, the soul doesn't always rush in. Sometimes it waits, even after conception has occurred. It hovers near the developing embryo, watching, feeling, assessing whether the conditions are truly ready. Is the emotional environment safe? Are the energies of the parents open and aligned? Is this life ready to begin? If the answer is no, the soul might hold off, or even choose not to anchor at all. This view gives new perspective to miscarriages and early pregnancy losses. Rather than viewing them solely as physical tragedies, they may also be understood as spiritual decisions, the soul realizing that the timing or circumstances weren't right for the journey it intended to take. And so it steps back, perhaps to return at another time, in another body, with the same parents or completely different ones. But when everything is aligned, when the soul feels the call and responds with full commitment, a sacred moment occurs. The veil between worlds thins, the energies intertwine, and the descent becomes final. This moment is not random. It is orchestrated, timed, chosen. It marks the point of no return, when the soul fully enters the path of matter and agrees to the joys and limitations of being human. From this point forward, the soul is not just a visitor, it is a resident, not just watching from beyond, but living through the cells, the breath, the heartbeat. And now, something extraordinary happens. What began as a solo journey transforms into a collaboration. The soul is no longer separate. It is not just an individual entering life. It is part of a sacred triangle. Soul, mother, and father, a trinity of intention, a three-part harmony forming the foundation of a new life on earth. In this sacred geometry, each point plays an essential role. The soul brings its purpose and past experiences. The mother offers her body, her nourishment, her intuition. The father contributes his lineage, his energy, his structure, and together they create a shared field through which the soul can grow, express, and evolve. This understanding changes everything. It reveals that parenthood is not accidental. It is a partnership with spirit. A soul does not choose a parent because they are perfect, but because they are perfectly suited to help it learn what it came to learn. Every flaw, every strength, every wound becomes part of the sacred curriculum. And every challenge between parent and child is an opportunity for mutual transformation. The child may mirror the parent's deepest wounds. The parent may be called to rise into their highest potential. This is not coincidence. This is design. Conscious, loving, and profoundly intelligent. And this co-creative process doesn't end at birth. It continues through every stage of childhood, adolescence, and even adulthood. The soul and the family remain in a subtle dance, triggering growth, healing old patterns, expanding awareness. The child is not a blank slate. It is a wise being, temporarily wearing a small body, with wisdom far beyond its years. Some parents sense this immediately, the feeling that their newborn is looking through them rather than at them, that their child knows more than they can explain, that they've been chosen not just to guide, but to learn. This perspective elevates the entire experience of being human. It invites us to view life not as something that happens to us, but as something we have chosen down to the most intimate details. It reframes suffering, not as punishment, but as part of a larger process of soul expansion. It reminds us that we are not alone, that behind every life, every body, every heartbeat, there is a story already in motion, a sacred journey of spirit into form. And perhaps most powerfully, it asks us to see each soul that enters this world as sacred from the very beginning, not after birth, not when the heart starts beating, but from the first moment it says yes to the call. Whether that soul enters at conception, at implantation, at the first heartbeat, or in layers over time, it is making a conscious, courageous journey into density, into experience, into love. And we, as parents, friends, or fellow travelers, are witnesses to that miracle. Our role is not to control it, but to honor it, to hold space for it, to walk alongside it with reverence. In the end, the moment the soul enters the body is not a single second marked on a calendar. It is a sacred event, unfolding across time and space, shaped by choice, guided by purpose, and supported by invisible forces far beyond what we see. It is not mechanical, it is not clinical, it is divine. And when we begin to see life this way, when we open our hearts to the sacred intelligence behind every birth, we remember something we've always known but often forget, that we are not accidents, that none of us are random, and that each soul's arrival is part of a much greater story, one that began long before we were born and will continue long after. A story of return, a story of love, a story of light stepping into form,